All right, cool. Let's get cracking. So, welcome to my How to Write Banger programs as a PT and coach. I've been in the industry for over 13 years, and programming definitely became a craft for me that I was very passionate about. I started to recognize that, even through study of ancient Greek history, that kind of where it all began in terms of prescribing programs was effectively what a personal trainer and fitness coach has evolved from. Initially, the priority or the main focus of what we did was write down the exercises and suggest the program for the client, athlete, patient, person to go complete and do. It's only over time that we've added, length of time sessions face-to-face and all the millions of variations of hybrid gyms and beyond what it used to be, which was just a simple gymnasium or even just a simple coliseum. So over time, I've become very passionate about programming. Initially, I was moved into a franchise, and I was just kind of thrown into doing their program and following their program. And I found myself very boxed in by it, wanting to learn more and wanting to explore all the different methodologies and avenues of programming as a way of problem solving the different clients and issues that were coming up in front of me. So I found that a curiosity kind of approach to programming really got me interested in what works, what doesn't, what works for different people, and how trying different things out usually is the cure or solution to problems. So strap yourself in. Let's get into some programming chat, and I'll try keep this to an hour. I think that's a pretty reasonable goal for me, but we'll see how we go with waffling on. So yeah, just quickly finish off my background there. Worked for a franchise, had to follow their program, which I found very limiting. Then started to go out on my own. Worked with different mentors and exposed to their different styles, did lots of short courses, started, as I said, researching where programming came from and then all the different programs. And a lot of programs today are still based on old school bodybuilding programs and strongman style programs that we've just adapted and become more efficient with our time as we've become more time dependent human beings. Okay, so let's get cracking. So programming, this is my step-by-step process. There's a million ways to, well, I don't know about a million, but there's lots of ways to skin a cat. And everything I say on this session is to be taken with a grain of salt, but I would like you to cherry pick out the parts you like and put them into place within your business or your coaching business and make the most of it. So for me, there's three main steps to delivering quality programming by my standards. Step one is your onboarding process, making sure you get that right and you get buy-in from the get-go with the client and they understand from a communication point of view what they're in for and what's to be expected. And also you collect all the data that you would need to be able to really write a good program. You're not just giving them a cookie cutter model that can be given to anyone, so to speak. Step two is the crafting. That's the fun part, the part I love. And I think a lot of people find it a bit of a drain, a bit of a punish to have to write programs. But for me, that's our passion. That's what we do. That's our gift that we're giving people. It's our, at our bare nuts and bolts of it, it's what gets the results. It's if they adhere to the program, we keep them accountable to it. And if we write one that's accurate of what they need, that's the exciting part that, is really what is getting the results. And I like to keep the kind of attitude towards it of when I write a program, I want to be so excited by that program that I kind of want to do it. It doesn't matter whether it's a senior, a youth athlete, a middle-aged person, injuries or not, all sorts of abilities. It should still excite you as something that is going to get a good result and that, you could benefit from it, because we can all benefit from scaling back and regressing and rebuilding ourselves. So getting excited about your craft, I think, is really valuable and putting some passion into it. And when you write it and send it off, you kind of want that energy that the client's like, oh, heck yeah, new program dropped. That's the kind of energy we want around it. So breaking that process down. And then step three, the final, is the delivery. So really bundling it all up and what it kind of looks like and how you roll it out and making sure that, I guess, you get people through it. Because whether you're an online coach or a face-to-face coach, the biggest hurdle, issue, problem we face is people not adhering to the program, not seeing it through and not completing it due to a multitude of reasons. But that being a barrier is a real problem. So you mean they're not going to get a result, they're not going to repurchase again, you're going to lose confidence in your ability to program. You feel like you've missed something in the program or you misprogrammed for them, which could have happened. So a multitude of reasons and I guess implications that come with that. So getting that part right. Okay, good. So let's move forward. I keep going to engage with the audience, but this is mostly a recording. So everyone be quiet. Now, if there's any questions, just chuck them in the end of the comments. And anyone who's watching this on a recording, please reach out to me because I'd love to talk about this stuff in detail. It's something I'm very passionate about. Okay, so step one, let's break it down and get into some details. So the inquiry or the qualification. So number one, they're inquiring to train with you. So absolutely, you're, the one who wants to sell them, and depending how your business is going, you're the one who feels like you need to prove what you're offering. But at the end of the day, you really want to be qualifying them to train with you, because that person going through your program, it's really important to consider that you want them to complete it, you want them to adhere to it, and you want them to get a result, because that is a reflection of you and your offer. And if you get a bunch of people through it who are the wrong people, who aren't going to complete it, they're not your correct customer, etc., then your program goes backwards. Well, it does go backwards, but it doesn't achieve the result. And therefore you lose confidence in the product, as well as you're not getting the referrals and the raving fans that you would otherwise had if you're qualifying the correct people. So a couple of steps here in terms of how to qualify them. Having an intake form and your marketing messaging to attract your ICA. So ideal customer avatar is what that stands for, or your niche or your ideal target market. By having your website, your type form, your Google Docs, your IG story polls, whatever it might be, having those things have qualifying questions that make sure that they're the right person for you. So for example, let's say you've got a type form on your Instagram or your website, and there's a question on there that says, what is your commitment out of 10 to following this program or to achieving your goals? And, if that's below a 7, you already know that this person really isn't going to put the time in. I know it seems a bit funny to judge someone by a number, but if it's less than 7, they're not taking it seriously. They're probably not going to sign up anyway. But it's just already flags it for you as something to consider. If it's a 10 out of 10, amazing, let's go. They're obviously very hyped. Maybe you need to check them on the reality of the situation. And if they're an 8 or a 9, the follow-up question when you see them is going to be, what would make it a 10? Like, what do you feel like's missing? What's in the way of your situation? So again, a really good qualifying question. Other things, if it's face-to-face, you're going to qualify whether they're local to you. If it's online, you're going to qualify whether they've currently got a coach, or they've done a program online before, or they're a member of gym, or, whether they're training at home. Just these kind of things that kind of check in and go, yeah, this is my kind of person. So I guess the locational stuff, the commitment stuff, and then a little bit of their history, like, are you currently training more than 4 times a week? And if someone says no, like they qualify, obviously great, it's someone I can get up to 4. And if they are already over 4, you're like, awesome, this is going to be someone who's committed and they're going to adhere to the program and I know what they're up for. So yeah, a couple of those questions can be really valuable in any of those formats that you end up going for. Next one, qualifying questions and process, i.e. booking. So we kind of touched on the questions there. But I guess the point before was more about actually having something in place in terms of a form to qualify people, not just going in cold onto those calls. A process, i.e. booking. So I got Calendly, DMs, call script there. So it's something like a Calendly where you're actually putting the onus on them to book in the call with you. It's like, here's my timetable, book in a call which time suits you. Already you're prompting them to take control of the situation, to not take control, sorry, but you're prompting them to be independent and disciplined and proactive in getting something done, because if they can't get on there and book a call with you, it's either because you're too busy and you don't have time that suits them, or they're on the other side of the world, or because they're just not that proactive in getting things done. So you already know, even if you chase them up and get them signed up, you already know that it's likely that there's going to be sessions missed. There's going to be things going on, and maybe this person's quite busy and it's going to be a hurdle to handle. Again, not 100% accurate of the time, but likely if they do have trouble doing that. The keen bean, the focused, determined person, the qualified client is going to jump on and book in straight away as soon as they get the link. Like, you get the link, why wouldn't you action it? So DMs, again, you can, like, this is talking about social media. You can be asking those questions that we talked about earlier on the form questions. It's like, how much training are you doing at the moment? Is it more than 3 times a week? Qualifies them. Are you local? Are you online? What are you doing in the gym at the moment? Are you just started? Are you not confident being in the gym? Whatever it might be, qualifying them. And then having a call script can be really valuable. So when you do get to the point of a call in an inquiry, it's going into detail of, what your training you're doing at the moment, blah, 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 blah. What would you like to achieve? And you really qualify them that way. I know this might seem a bit funny. It's like, sign up for the Zoom to do some programming, man, not to hear about how to sign clients up. But this for me is a really important step towards having someone who's bought in to a program. You're going to put the time into it. You want to make sure you attract the right people for it. Third and final, gaining some info around goals, commitment, and history. Not too much here. So whether that's in the form or on the call, whatever it might be, making sure you cover that, I think, is really valuable. Okay, next step, consult, trial, collecting data. So whether they get on the phone for an hour, or whether they just submit a form, or whether you have like a face-to-face trial session with them or a Zoom call, whatever it might be, your goal is just to collect as much data from that interaction as possible, learning everything about them, their circle of influence, their training history, their limitations, injuries, pregnancy, frustrations, problems, pain, emotions attached to achieving or not achieving, circle of influence, lifestyle, circumstances, of course, their primary goal, their secondary goal, what they've achieved before, what they've tried to achieve before and haven't. Why haven't they fixed this problem earlier? Why is now a good time? All these kinds of things. So learn as much of them about them as you can, so that when you go to sit down and craft and create your baby for them, you've got everything you need to give them that juicy passion that you're capable of giving them. Yep. Okay, nice and simple. And then finally, screening and testing. So you might have a process where they inquire online, then you have a phone call with them, and then you either face-to-face or you send them a testing session where they've got to submit videos to you, or they do them in front of you, and you can assess them there, yeah? So I've got ABC there, assess tests relevant to your program and the problem you are solving. So for example, let's just take weight loss. It's the most common one, fat loss, weight loss. So obviously you want to know what they weigh, maybe their body fat percentage, maybe you want to do calipers, girth tests, whatever it might be, having those tests that are relevant to what they want to achieve. Other things for you with weight, it might be, their ability to hang, it might be their ability to touch their toes, it might be their ability to climb a flight of stairs without puffing, whatever it might be, making sure you have tests that are relevant to the problem you are solving. You've not got someone who's wanting to train for their wedding and what you're doing with them is putting through marathon running testing. Like, it wouldn't make sense, right? So just align the tests with the problem you're solving. And if you're taking on too many different problems, then you need some really general tests, or you need to start to work a bit more on getting the right clients. B, have bare ass minimums, BAMs, for your tribe. Standards they must hit. These work well for testing. So for me, I'm really pro on this. This is something I preach a lot about having in your gym or as part of your coaching business, standards that this tribe have got to strive for. So for example, I've got some coming up on the next few pages, but you might have a minute hang as a bare ass minimum, a resting squat for 2 minutes. They might have to be able to do 20 kettlebell swings with half their body weight, whatever it might be, you'd have a list of these things that would make a really well-rounded athlete, but they're also the things that you're really good at teaching that relate to their goals or the problem you're solving. And then they become your tests. So it's like, oh, great. You just put everyone through the same. And then they also can communicate with other members of the tribe or community about that, because they're like, how'd you go in your testing session? It's like, oh, I was shit on the hang, or I was great in the run, or whatever, but for them, all of a sudden, you're like, okay, all of my members within the first 9 weeks can achieve this. You're giving them an outcome from the start that makes them performance-based, not just aesthetic-based or whatever it else might be. Because people can get so focused on their primary goal, which might be to lose weight, run a marathon or whatever, that they're not focusing on the journey and the process throughout. And that's what makes your programming so special, because if they want to lose weight, they don't really care about deadlifts or things like that until you sell them the purpose of it. But if they have to hit these standards, all of a sudden, everything else becomes more important. They become more invested in their training and how much weight they're lifting and their progress. Whew, I could really get rolling on that one. Anyway, okay, C, complete via 30 to 45 minutes with ease, or via video submission. So it should be pretty simple for people to be able to jump in and do that. Yeah. Like it shouldn't be hard to achieve that testing session, and it shouldn't take you too long to achieve either. Okay, cool. Let's move forward. Whew. Step 2. So just to recap that step 1, it's all about onboarding and make sure they're bought in, they understand what's in front of them, and you just have as much data as possible. Step 2 is you go away and you write it. Now, I would suggest you have something in place, some sort of buffer of 1 to 2 weeks, where you go to them, great, awesome, you got some really cool goals, I like where you're at, you're totally in the type of person I like to work with. And I've helped many clients in your situation before achieve that. Whether you have or you haven't, it's a nice selling point. They're probably already bought in by now, but it's good to reinforce that. And then from there, you're going to say to them, I've got this onboarding program, which I'll get you to go and do in 1 to 2 weeks, just really basic stuff. You get you to do 50 squats a day, 10 push-ups a day, go hang for a minute a day, and then go for a run around the block. Do that every day for a week, and then we'll be ready to start my new program. Something like that. You don't want to just tell them to go away and, just chill out for a week, and then we'll get started in a week or 2 weeks' time. Give them something really basic that you've pre-written before that you can give to anyone. It just preps their body just in terms of general physical preparedness. You're thinking just mobility, that kind of stuff. And then you go to them, it'll take me a week or 2 weeks, whatever, how busy you are, to write your program, because it's going to be custom built for you. And then I'll explain it when that comes and we get straight into it. Okay, so crafting, goals and gifts. What is their primary goal? Number 1. Cool. That's the most important thing when you sit down to program. At the end of the day, this person is paying you to achieve X. You have to make sure that is the primary focus, because at the end of the day, you don't do what they came for. Maybe they'll stay on for their friends because you're friends and they like the community. But at the end of the day, we are promising an outcome. So we need to deliver on that. And if the outcome is not something that you do, you don't coach that, you don't have the programming for that, whatever it might be, then you need to communicate that and change the primary goal or refer them to someone else. What is the secondary goal? So I think that's really important. A lot of us, can focus on one and not have a secondary in place. Can be quite valuable to recognize not being so hell-bent on just one and losing focus of the other. So for example, someone might want to lose 5 kg. That's clearly the primary goal, even though you've communicated, it's not just about aesthetic and weight loss will be a byproduct and all this stuff that we know. But you'll say to them, okay, that's our primary goal. And then our secondary goal is to increase your deadlift by 10 kilos. Bang, performance-based goal, brings them into the training, gets them more bought in, makes them understand the process more. What are your goals for them? Standards. So we've already talked about that, the BAMs. You want them to be in your community. They need to be able to achieve X amount of things to be part of your community ongoing, blah, 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 blah. What gifts will you give them? Got my pictures and people in the, too far. What gifts will you give them as part of the process? Yeah. So what is a byproduct and what is the real goal? So the standards, the gifts, that's kind of all the same thing. I call it gift giving because you might know how to skip really well and how to deadlift and how to Olympic lift, handstand, whatever it might be. These are your gifts that you end up giving them. It's not necessarily what they came there for, but they're byproducts of coaching with you. Things that you can give them that they will have forever or they'll carry on and take with them, etc. And what is the byproduct and what is the real goal? So again, kind of talking about weight loss or whatever it might be. At the end of the day, it's much better if we can get them focused on performance-based goals because they're literally the things we can have more control of in our programming. Whereas weight and body fat percentage and things like that, of course, to an element we can control. But as personal trainers, most of us aren't touching nutrition because it's not what we're educated on, as well as there's too many things going on in their lifestyle and stresses and all sorts of stuff that can put that actually out of your control. And then as soon as you're not achieving their primary goal, you start to lose that client. Whereas if you've got a client that's focused more on their performance-based and their weight or body fat as a secondary, for example, then you can kick goals and have the byproduct happen as it happens. Okay, bio-individuality, really big point here. Customization. So when you say you build custom programs for people, this is what you mean. Customization to address the biological makeup. This includes their strengths, weaknesses, skill level, muscle mass, short and long muscle balance, mental resilience, physical capacity, respiratory, cardiovascular, and so on. So breaking that down a little bit more, their biological makeup. So, they got one leg longer than the other, not so much that kind of stuff. But if we think about what their strength and the weaknesses are, someone might be knee dominant. We've heard that a lot. They're a quad dominant athlete. They're a much better squatter than our deadlifter, or the other way around. They got They don't have the ankle range. Their tibialis anteriors are short and tight, and the other way around, weak and long, and their calves are short and tight, not allowing your knees to track over the toes very well. So assessing that stuff, being aware of that stuff via the testing, their skill level, they might want to learn Olympic lifting, but they've actually never mastered a body weight deadlift yet. So that's a precursor. They need to be able to have that level of skill strength in terms of deadlifting to be able to move on to Olympic lifting. Muscle mass, whether too much, too little, whatever it might be. Too much is an interesting conversation, but anyway, short and long muscle balance. Same thing I just talked about, calf and tibialis anterior. Mental resilience, getting into training when they haven't been training, they might not have confidence, is tough. You set someone an AMRAP who's a beginner, it's not going to be anything like someone who's trained and conditioned. So being aware of these kind of points and what state of the journey are they on as to what you're programming. Physical capacity, same thing. Respiratory, cardiovascular, and so on. So respiratory and cardiovascular, again, it's not just all the muscle. You might have someone getting into their training and that you might program a circuit for them, or maybe it's a giant set, for example, and they're moving nonstop between exercises. If it's tough enough, like it's got heavy back squats or something, that you might find that their engine goes before their actually muscle mass goes. So cardiovascular might break down, or their respiratory if they're a little bit asthmatic. So again, understanding all that stuff, building a robust program that breaks, builds, and balances both muscle and mind. What an alliteration. Love that shit. Okay, so breaks. Obviously, we've got to break down muscle for them to build muscle. Yeah, builds all of the above: muscle, respiratory, cardiovascular, all the things. You're building blocks to build them up so that they're better than before, so they find progress. And balancing both mind and muscle. So many programs don't do this well enough. Yeah. Even just considering their mental resilience as a beginner is a big thing. The amount of stories of people that go to see a personal trainer and the personal trainer just absolutely smashes them because they think that's what they need to be able to be a good trainer and for them to talk about them to their friends, as well as the client to feel broken so that they know that they've got a lot of work to do, is so unnecessary. Yeah. That, like, of course, there's going to be a little bit of that anyway, because the body might just react to it and they're not used to it. But putting someone into the floor in their first session isn't actually a good duty of care and taking care of that client. Pushing them to the right level where they will have progress, they will have muscle breakdown, they will feel what it's like to start training, and they will start to build confidence is key. Blowing up some people in the first session will just wreck their confidence from day one, and they'll go home saying, I'm as weak as I thought I was, I'm hopeless. How good if they go home going, oh, it was great, I really enjoyed it. It was tough, but I could do it, and I can feel I'm going to get better. Completely different way of going about the session. And that often shows the level of the coach to me. Unless it's a PT and you just want to put them in the floor because it's a competitive thing, and then that happens. But no, most of the time, awareness of that, you're building them, right? You're not just breaking them. Limitations and considerations. This is a process I follow for programming here. Injury and illness, body composition, specific goals. If they are injured or if they are sick, that needs to be first thing that's addressed. So when you talk to them and you talk about your program, great. So I've built out your program. Now what I've done is I've modified this because of this. For example, you rolled your ankle last week in a basketball game. So therefore, we're not going to be going heavy on our squats or full depth or whatever it might be. I've modified to X exercise so that we can take the pressure off that healing process. Yeah, cool. Same, running, skipping, whatever it might be. You'd modify it for an ankle roll, right? It doesn't take the overriding arch of not training. You don't not train, but you modify to make sure that acute problem is being addressed. Same with illness. If they're sick, you need to take out the conditioning or whatever it might be. Adding stress on top of stress will often prolong the sickness and the illness, depending on what it is. If someone's got a cold and then they start a new program and go smash themselves on the assault bike, we all know how that's going to go. It's not going to get better. They're going to be sick for longer. They're likely going to miss the next sessions. Okay, number one, then body composition. You can't ignore it. Yeah. As much as people will be like, I don't care about my weight, that's fine, I'm going to train through. You at least need to have the conversation and the discussion. If you're a coach who works with strength to weight ratio, as in, double body weight deadlift, you're working towards that kind of goal, then you need to consider that, being lighter would make that easier to an extent. Obviously, stronger, some of the strongest people in the world are way above the body weight that they maybe need to perform. But for them, that's a much higher level of the scale. For most of us, we're looking at strength to weight ratio for athletic performance. So, most of our clients, I don't know about you, obviously it depends on the person. Most of our clients want to be able to run, they want to be able to jump, they want to be able to lift, they want to be able to swim. Strength to weight ratio is key. Someone whose body fat percentage is sitting too high will affect that result. Someone whose body fat percentage is sitting too low and their ability to build muscle isn't there will also affect that result. Again, you're not judging people. You're not putting them in the place saying you have to lose 5 kilos. You're just addressing the fact that they're above or below where they could be. And hopefully training will obviously just have a big impact on that and fix it. But when you tell me you can't do chin-ups, why can't you do chin-ups and you're 50 kg heavier than potentially you need to be? That answers the question. Or the marathon you want to run that could be done so much better for your health and longevity if you were 10 kg lighter. Yeah, you guys get the idea. And then finally, specific goals. If someone wants to run a marathon, they want to learn Olympic lifting, they want to hit a double body weight deadlift, whatever it might be, that would come in third to those other two. The program will be built for that, but there may be things that need to be addressed first. For example, body composition. There are protocols you could put in place, such as metabolic conditioning, depending where you're at with nutrition stuff. We'll just keep it training orientated. That will lead them for a couple of weeks. They could do, okay, I'm just going to say it anyway. They could do some fasting stuff. They could do some metabolic conditioning stuff for just 2 weeks or whatever, leading into their 12-week program that will help them get into a better position, body composition wise, to achieve better goals. Yeah, just an idea. Injury and illness, we've already discussed that. It just needs to be addressed. Okay, next point. That's the process for limitations and considerations. Of course, they'll have preferences. They'll have differences unilateral wise, which is kind of bio-individuality, but there might be more to it. There might be injuries there. Lifestyle and circumstances for completion and adherence. Lifestyle. If someone likes to go out on a Friday night and you program a session Saturday morning, they're probably going to miss some of those Saturday morning sessions. Awareness of that, whether they need to change it or whether you need to modify your program. Circumstances, family, kids makes a big difference. Someone who says they're going to train 7 days a week for 2-hour sessions, but they've got 5 kids might not be a reasonable expectation. Completion and adherence is key. So if you need to regress your programming, reduce the criteria to success, then do that so that you can make sure that they get more done and achieved. Because the worst case is after this first program, they decide to step it up more. Yeah. It's better to have them completely adhere and be able to do extra than to have them missing heaps of sessions. Okay, methodology and variables, type of program. So whether it's a full body, whether it's an upper lower split, or whether it's a split routine, they're just the 3 I'm going to discuss in this session. There is more, but they're the main and most common ones that you'll see. We'll break that down in a future slide. Methodology, whether it's results-based, previous success, a proven method, always using progressive overload. So it's really important that we understand that we need to write programs of something we've either done before and had success with, or we know is a proven result either by research papers or by, whatever, you've seen it in practice and know that it works and there's actually had enough people through it. If you just make something up and throw them at them, that's okay to have fun, but you're rolling the dice as to whether you get a result, whether you get adherence, and whether you get a raving fan or not. Variables selection, simple. Variables being your rep sets, all that kind of juicy good stuff that's part of programming. We will break that down on a future slide. Whew. Step 2, we are flying, and we are just over 30 minutes in. Beautiful. Okay. Quick recap, goals and gifts. So understanding what the primary goals are and what the things are that you want to be in the program, customizing it to their personal biological makeup, the limitations and the injuries and all the things that come with that, and then the methodology and variables. So you can see that would be my order. Some people might do that the other way around. It's like, okay, we're going to do a split routine. It's going to be bodybuilding focus. And then they'll go, okay, what's their goal? Okay, and what's their injuries? Yeah, I do the other stuff first, and then you can make an educated decision on what your program is going to be built out by, rather than just getting excited about, I'm going to put them through a split squat drop set and it's going to hurt them. Okay, where are we? Whoa, okay, good. Strength standards, just what I wanted to show. This is a good graph that I often use for my clients as both a target for them to build towards, as well as a measure of where people are at. So just to give you a bit of an understanding, some people might screenshot this one or go download it. You can usually find this one on a Google search. Beginner is, some people get that just straight off the bat, right? Just getting started. They should be able to achieve those in no time after you've educated them on the movements and the positions. Average is maybe they've been doing it for a year, maybe on off for longer, but it shouldn't take them long. Like a good 12-week block, they should be able to hit most of these things if they're in reasonable condition. If that's absolutely their first time training, it might take longer. And person to person, there will be different things in there. Like obviously, some people might be looking at the numbers going 100% bench press. What the fuck? Like I said, some might take longer time, but if you might look at that number and go, there's no way. But if you did a program that was structured to, and the sole outcome of that program was to hit 100% of your body weight bench press, then you wouldn't take too long to achieve it, right? So keeping that mindset about it. Now, trained means you've worked on that specific lift for 2 years consistently. That should be what that target is. For most, it will be longer because we on off and we get distracted and we do different things and life gets in the way. But by data wise, if you were to be in ideal circumstances adhering to specific programs, you would hit those goals in a 2-year time period if you're working specifically on those strength skills. And obviously the goal here would be to work on a few of them for a block, put them on maintenance as you work on other ones, then come back to them. Yeah, we're talking longer term programming there, but that would be how that concept would work. For example, we drill the back squat, the deadlift, the clean and the jerk, and then we're working hard at that to achieve progress. And then on the next block, we'd put those on maintenance, still do them, but put them on maintenance. So just hitting 70 to 80% of them. As in percentage of RMs, and then, shifting to front squat and snatch and working on those, and then continually alternating and getting progress in both. Okay. Example of some bare ass minimums, some standards. This is my Spain experience, what I've got coming up. I send this to everyone who's coming along and challenge them to achieve my BAMs before they get there. So some nice simple ones. That's hang from a bar for 2 minutes, which is reasonable. It's a tough one for most to achieve, but it's also very attainable for most if you actually train it. Run 5 kilometers, 1.5 times your body weight in a deadlift. Squat your body weight for 5 reps, front or back. Chin up for 5 reps, push up for 20 reps. That's on the toes, obviously. Pike fist to floor is a forward fold, posterior chain stretch. So just literally touching your toes, but with fists. Resting squat for 2 minutes, juggle 3 ball times 100, foot juggle times 10 with a soccer ball, handstand chest to wall, just to be able to do it. I was going to say that was infinite for a second there, but just to be able to achieve it. Spanish 10 words, vamos, and 1 quote memorized. That is just some wild standards that I have so that they're prepared for all the crazy stuff I'm going to throw at them at a 6-day training camp at Mike's Gym, Marbella in Spain. Now, I've added levels, so there's more things to focus on if someone wants to come back each year and progress and get better and better. Now, how this would work in a gym would be like entry-level beginner, which should be very easy for people to achieve. You might not have that many. You might just have 8 or 10. Then you would have next level. It's like, okay, this is like this is our intermediate members, maybe is your next step. And then you got your advanced, and maybe the advanced get, a special hat or a t-shirt or whatever it might be. Maybe just everyone who does the bare ass minimums get a t-shirt with their name on the back, whatever it might be. This kind of system breeds really good progress as well as retention within your brand and within your company. So having standards is so key, I believe, having things for people to strive for that isn't just coming in and sitting on the cross trainer for 10 minutes and then doing some squats and then going to the next thing. No mindless training and cardio and whatever it might be. It should be purposeful, outcome-based training that they're trying to achieve progress. Because if they're constantly trying to achieve progress and constantly trying to hit higher standards and they're progressing with structured training, their body will be adapting and changing as part of that. So will their mind. So standards, key for me, really big part. Okay. Voice is going well. I'm impressed. I might just have a sip of water though while that digests for everyone. And if anyone's taking notes, awesome. Feel free to pause as you go, but I don't need to tell you to do that. Okay, types of programs, just some basics around some terminology of programs. So a macro cycle is the full program or the full season. So For example, a macro cycle for a baseball team, it would be their full off season, and then it would be their full in season programs. Now, for us, we generally don't deal with that kind of sports season. So a macro cycle for us is often like a 12-week program or an 8-week program. They're probably the most common ones we see. Now, a mesocycle is a block of the program. Now, for example, the macro cycle is 12 weeks. The mesocycle is 2 6-week blocks. It's just a name. You can call them blocks. You can call it program, full program, half program, whatever you want. But you might see this terminology come up when you're learning about different programs and understanding them. Microcycle, a week or the smallest unit of program. So it might be a week, sometimes it might be 2 weeks. It might be a 3-day, a 3-day, a 3-day, whatever it might be. I've done a Russian squat program where the microcycle was like 5 days and then it changed. It disregarded the weekend. It was just about staying on program as to how your body recovered and bounced back, for example. Okay, full body routine. Every session trains the entire body and all the movement patterns. For example, they're going to do a squat, they're going to do a deadlift, they're going to do an overhead press, they're going to do a chin up, they're going to do a row, they're going to do a push up, they're going to do some walking lunges with some rotation, they're going to do some core. So everything in one. Most common thing you'll probably see is a full body routine. It's what every group class out there generally does. They're getting a little bit more focused in some gyms now. And also, most programs that are cookie cutter are just written full body because then they can't go wrong with overtraining the same muscle group too much. Makes sense. Okay, upper lower body split routine. Now, this is, for example, a squat and chin up session and a deadlift and a push session. Yeah, so they're split. Upper lower split. Now you could do again all upper, all lower, all upper, all lower, but more than likely this kind of program will be like lower body push, upper body pull, lower body pull, upper body push as the 2 different sessions, and then they would alternate. Cool. Final one, full body split. So it's going to be just legs, just upper body push, just upper body pull, just core, or that kind of routine. Yeah, they're the most common ones. And obviously there's variations of that. For example, the upper lower split might have, it might like have upper and lower, then it might have upper and core, and it might have lower and upper, whatever it might be. Now, where are these applied? Who can you give these to? So a full body routine is quite good for a beginner. Now, that's perfect because they're not going to get too sore from hitting one action or part of the body too much. And it gives them time to recover. It means you can kind of blitz everything because they're likely just to get sore from everything. And then the next session, you can repeat that. Because they're a beginner, they will recover quicker and they'll bounce back well, and you'll be able to keep doing it. Where like you could squat 3 times a week. Anyone could squat 3 times a week. Anyone could squat 7 days a week. Just depends on how you program it. But in general, that's great for a beginner. The other one it's great for is an athlete who doesn't want to be sore for their games. For example, they got training 3-4 times a week and they got 2 games on the weekend or whatever it is. They don't want to be sore from a full split routine or even an upper split routine. So having a full body routine means they can bounce back, means they can train everything and keep everything healthy, happy, and not be too sore for game day. Okay, so upper lower split routine. I would start to use this for more people who are getting into the intermediate. So they're getting a bit more serious about their strength and they want to be able to get progress all the time in all their lifts, whatever it might be, or really focused on maybe 2 specific lifts. You'll see this a little bit more in powerlifting as well, and just in general, more serious strength and conditioning sessions. So more an intermediate approach also can be quite good for anyone who's learning skills. For example, ring muscle up, handstand push-ups, Olympic lifting can work well with that kind of routine as well. And then finally, the full split routine, most commonly seen in bodybuilding, but also very good for high-end strength work. So someone who's wanting to achieve a one-arm chin-up, handstand push-up, or double bodyweight deadlift, there's big kind of numbers at the end of the spectrum where they're getting beyond that 2-year mark of really achieving some pretty outstanding feats of strength are going to be best achieved by the full split routine. I almost went full body routine, full split or just split routine, because you can really focus in and drill in on that one part of the body or that one action. Now, the great thing about that is that then you can really measure how many days of rest are needed, because generally at this point, they'll be taking 2 to 3 days before they hit that again. So for example, Monday might be upper body push, and then they're not going to hit that again until Thursday. Tuesday might be lower body push. They're not going to hit it again until Friday. And the week can change, as in the upper body push might not always be Monday, because the next day they want to hit that is Sunday or something like that, right? Okay, cool, good. Next, how are we tracking? Beauty, 43 minutes. I think I'm going to be on time. Doing well. Woohoo! All right, holistic programming. I've kind of just thrown that in there, but this is pretty normal programming, to be honest. But I call it holistic because a lot of people don't have these considerations when they write programs of what should be in the program and whether they're covering all bases, covering all blocks, as I've said. So the session build should have, well, it doesn't have to have it. You can structure it any way you want, but most commonly we'll have a warm up, then it'll have the middle of the session, and then it'll have a cool down. Strength and conditioning world, and the way I program is generally going to have a warm-up. Then there's going to be power or skill work. So for example, handstands or muscle ups, Olympic lifting. Olympic lifting kind of trades into power as well. Then into your main strength element, then into conditioning, and then cool down. I've kind of missed accessory in there, but I've chucked it in with a conditioning effectively. So the warm-up is going to go from anywhere from 2 to 10 mins, most likely. The idea is to elevate the heart rate, put them through some full range dynamic movements, and prep the body for what's to come. Classically will be like 1 to 2 minutes of machine, and then into some joint prep, like mobility work. Power or skill work, like I said, it might be handstands, might be ring muscle ups, might be Olympic lifting. That's going to be a 10 to 15 minute block. Not too long. The rest periods shouldn't be too long. There shouldn't be too many reps because it's power work, so it's lower on the rep scheme. And it shouldn't be fatiguing because it's power work and it's at the start of the session. It's going to wake up the central nervous system, get the athlete or client really firing, and then get them primed for their session while exploring, eliciting, one of the E words, a display of their physical power and strength. So, seeing what their broad jump is like, seeing what their clean is like, seeing how quick they can move that sled up and back and how springy they are on box jumps or whatever it might be. Then into their strength, it's going to be anywhere from 2 to 3 exercises max, or 1 to 3 really, where you're really focusing on getting progress in the given lift. And that's going to be, again, in the lower strength range of 1 to 6 reps. And the rest periods are going to be higher now. So this is going to be more like a 20-minute block, most likely. You're probably going to get 2 lifts in there, or if they're doing something bigger, it might take up the whole block, depending on how many sets they're hitting and reps, the volume. And then accessory would come after that, which is where you work focusing on any weaknesses or imbalances, correcting any of that short and long muscle breakdown. And then also addressing any hypertrophy gains that might be needed. We talked about someone being quad dominant before, so therefore the accessory work for them might be more hitting a hypertrophy pattern for their posterior chain to get some more balance back to the front and the back of the leg. And then after that comes conditioning. Generally, everyone knows conditioning, slam your balls in the door kind of stuff. It's not always intense, but obviously you got to elicit some sort of cardiovascular and respiratory response. So it's got to be tough enough that they can see progress. And depending on what they're trying to achieve, it could be really basic, like a basic EMOM, where they get the rest of the minute off to rest on the ski erg, whatever it might be, or it could be quite intense. It could have the Olympic lifting in there. It could have dead balls, Atlas stones, slam balls, farmers carries, whatever it might be. Conditioning is a very broadly used word though, because you can think about it as conditioning for cardiovascular and heart rate, or you could think about it as conditioning for the connective tissue and the mobility of the joints. For example, I could write a conditioning session for handstands holds, and it could be just literally your stamina in the hold position. Doesn't mean it's going to be crazy heart rate cardiovascular, but the actual stamina of the endurance of the shoulders and the muscular conditioning there. Yeah, you get the point. And then cool down, some down regulations, whether it's breath work, whether it's just a lighter walk or jog to slowly bring the heart rate back down after the conditioning work, and just kind of conclude the session in a healthy, relaxed state rather than peaking in the session and then just going in and getting on with your life. It's great to be able to get the athlete, client, person back into the parasympathetic nervous system in that rested state so they can recover quicker and better, basically, and also get on with their day without their heart rate being up. Anyone who's done a boxing session for the first time or not in a while, and then you got to go sign something in your hands like this and your heart rate's still up, you recognize that point. Where so in our strength sessions, if we can do some good down regulation there, they'll recover well. Okay, strength patterns, the other side of the coin, making sure you cover all of these within a program. And if they're not all in one program, that's okay, but they need to be in the next program. So the most classic ones, how I describe them, is knee dominant, which is a lower push. That's your squats, your split squats, your lunges, your front squats, your overhead squats, your Zercher squats, blah, 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 blah. Patrick step-ups, whatever it might be, Poliquin step-ups, sorry. Your hinge pattern, your lower pull, your deadlifts, your RDLs, your single leg deads, your cable pull-throughs, blah, 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 blah. Okay, your vertical push, that is your overhead press, your single arm press, your landmine press, etc. Your vertical pull, your chin-ups, your pull-ups, your rope climbs, your sled pulls in the hinge position, all that kind of stuff. Horizontal push, bench press, push-ups. You get the idea. Horizontal rows, ring rows. Horizontal pull is ring rows, horizontal rows, pendlay rows, bicep curls, all that kind of stuff. And then rotational work is the one that is often missed, which is your wood chops on the cable, your lunges with a twist, your landmine from a kneeling start, split to switch, whatever it might be. Yeah, so making sure you have that, because some programs will just continually hit the same process back to back. So for example, they'll do squat, they'll do bench, and then they'll do some sort of bent over row, and that'll just be on repeat. And then we get fixed in these linear positions where we're always just doing the same. And then our mobility doesn't improve because we're not exposing all the joints to all the ranges of motion and keeping really well rounded in terms of our ability to move. So that's how I would make sure that's in there. Now, how that would look would be something like, they've obviously got the general warm up. The power is going to be the power work. The strength will be probably just two of these. So for example, a squat and then an overhead press. And then the next session will hit likely a hinge and a pull, whatever it might be. And then the accessory and conditioning will get maybe a mix of those same ones or maybe different ones. So for example, you might do overhead press, the vertical push, for one of their primary strength exercises. And then the conditioning might have weighted push-ups, therefore covering the horizontal push as well. Or you might just keep it all vertical push and then the next program becomes horizontal, but it just needs to be considered and it needs to be decided purposefully with an understanding that it's going to change in future. And the rotational work should fit in nicely in that accessory work and the conditioning work, just to make sure they're getting it. So they're getting that nice freedom of rotation within their body and not being so linear in one phase. The variables, I would challenge you to pause the video for those that are, and those that are watching it live, just take a few seconds here, just to write down as many variables as you can think of, and just see if you get as many as I've written down here. There obviously is different names and there can be more or less. There's no right or wrong. It's just recognizing that these are the building blocks of any program. So have a go at that now, if you have the time. So I'm going to list these variables here. We're just going to talk through them very briefly, and it's just an explanation of basically now you've decided, you've figured out who they are, what their goal is, and all that kind of stuff. You got all that data. You've decided on what's the most important things to work on immediately. You've figured out what methodology you want to go with, what type of program, and then what routine it's going to be. Now you're going to break down actually what it is. What is session to session look like? What's the first 6 weeks going to look like? What's the second 6 weeks going to look like? And so on. So let's get into it. Hopefully you wrote a few down. So the first ones that I think are the most, the overarching variables that you need to decide on is frequency. How many times a week are they training? How many times a week are they hitting said exercise? So for example, your primary strength are going to be your priority, right? Because strength and force production is the building blocks of all athletic movement. So if we're not getting progress in their strength work, they're probably not going to lose as much weight as they could. They're not going to be able to perform as good as strength to weight ratio activities. It's not going to have as carryover to their running ability, whatever it might be. So choosing the frequency there is key. So for example, if they're going to be squatting heavy or whatever it might be, how many times a week they're going to be hitting that as part of that. Good. Volume, cool. The overall volume that's included in that. So a 5x5, right, is 25 reps. That's the overall volume of squats they're doing in that session. But then you could look at the volume differently and you could look at how much weight they're lifting. They're doing 5x1 at 100 kg. They're lifting 500 kg of volume in that session. And you could go by how much weight is being moved in that session. So the reps and the sets and all that can change, but the overall volume of how much weight is moving could be going up. Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Lots of different ways to go about that. I don't have time to break down every single type of program in this presentation, but it starts to give you an idea of different ways of looking at it. Intensity. So we can look at RPE. So the session could be, that was a 10 out of 10 tough session. And then so next session, it needs to either taper down or, you know, you need to keep it there until that session becomes an 8, and then you can progressively overload it. So recognizing that, and you can play with the intensity by what the session is like, how high a percentage the lifts are, what the conditioning is like, how intense the power stuff is to get their heart rate up before they go into it. Exercise selection, obviously the most commonly known part of programming, which people probably get the most excited about, is what I'm going to get you to back squat, or I'm going to get you to front squat, I'm going to get you to exertion squat, I'm going to overhead squat, I'm going to get you to split squat, pistol squat, shrimp squat, whatever it might be. So exercise selection is obviously really important to address where they're up to and choose correctly. And then exercise order is the next big one. So, you know, you don't want to, and we've kind of labeled this by talking about power, strength, accessory. You wouldn't want to put their really heavy strength stuff at the end of the session, because if you think about the mind and the body and our attention span and our energy levels, if you were to put the really heavy focus stuff after their conditioning, when they're fatigued and they're not thinking clearly, they're not going to get anywhere as good a result as if it was earlier in the session. So exercise order, key point. Next, the common ones: sets, reps, rest, tempo, and load. Stuff we all know. Sets, how many times you will repeat the exercise. Reps, how many repetitions of that set will be completed. Rest, the time between the sets. Tempo, the individual reps, how long it will take to achieve and at what phases of the movement. Isometric, concentric, eccentric, as to what phases of we'll be doing what for how long. And then load, of course, you know, what's the resistance going to be? Are you going to increase weight? Is it banded? Is it just their own body weight? Whatever it might be. Gravity, if you can count that. And then the last two that you don't probably hear a lot of, most people probably got the prior ones, but maybe not these last two. Accommodating resistance. So something like banded chin-ups, it changes the load throughout the movement pattern. Chains are the same thing. Partner spotted resistance, like someone pushing you down while you're doing push-ups. And then, excuse me, partial reps as well. So doing like 1 1/4 in their back squat, for example, or doing just rack pulls for your deadlifts, half the reps, whatever it might be, playing with all sorts of different ranges of motion, allowing you to make it difficult in different parts of the range, which can have massive breakthroughs. So partial reps might seem like a funny one if you're just doing, if you kept your programming pretty normal, let's say that you haven't been so much in the strength and conditioning world, but something like someone who goes to hit a deadlift 1 RM and you know they can rack pull 200 kg but they can't get 160 off the floor, is recognizing the deficit in their strength in the range at the beginning of the movement, the most difficult part, getting the bar off the ground. So addressing that with more partial reps, just from floor to knee, and building that part of the range could be the answer. Things like that. Okay, there's more, but that's enough to cover most, I think, and they're the major ones. Ooh, couple minutes. Step 3. Let's see if I can wrap this. All right, delivery, the final part, packaging it. So things I would suggest you have is an onboarding email, welcoming them with the essential information and reinforcing their decision. Congratulations on joining the program. I'm so excited to work with you. Here are the necessary links for the information you need. Maybe it's your coaching app. Maybe it's like a suggested reading, whatever it might be. There might be a PDF that talks them through how to get the most out of the program or what to be prepared for. Maybe it's just when the next session is, that kind of stuff. Good time to ask for a referral as well. Next, videos to demonstrate exercise to serve as reminders of tutorials. Whether you're face-to-face or whether you are purely online, having your exercises videoed and uploaded to either YouTube or your coaching app will just allow you to, it's an asset for you to be able to coach more when you're not with them. For example, they do their face-to-face session with you and you teach them how to split squat in depth. And then 2 days later, they've got to do their own solo session and they read split squat and go, oh, I can't remember what that was. You got a really simple video of you doing it there as part of their program. Bang, they remember it, they get straight into it. Delivery through coaching app. I use TrueCoach. I love TrueCoach. I rate TrueCoach. Obviously, there's so many out there. But having that, I think, is a real asset to be able to charge more per session because you're adding more value, but also be able to make sure that they're adhering and getting the results outside of the sessions. A simple PDF is my next point, which works as well. You link it with YouTube videos, but the accountability there of them completing the sessions would involve more per person. Okay, cost. Average is $25 to $30 per week with coaching, and some cheaper for just program, unless it's proven has built-in accountability in education. So basically, I'm just saying that if you're doing personal training and you're talking about adding programming on top for them to do outside of their sessions, because obviously you program the sessions, they don't need to see that, but if they're doing extra outside of, or just to actually know how much you should be charging it, that's a pretty classic amount, because it would take you an hour to write it, which might be $100 of your time. And then also the feedback of looking at it each week and checking in on them. Again, it's just a rough guide, but an idea to think about for whether you're actually charging it, because there's a lot of PTs out there that work for companies that get paid per hour, but then they write programs for the clients and they're not getting paid for that. So the program is really valuable. Like I said, guys, I think it's actually the craft, the baseline of what we do and what we offer. And the legacy of, I guess, our career and our industry came from prescription of programming, prescription of training. In the same way that a doctor would prescribe medication or treatment, we are prescribing exercise to address their problems. So therefore, that's our craft, and that's valuable. Creating buy-in through purpose. Deliver everything with education around purpose and notice the difference in the intention of the athlete. So not just going, let's do a deadlift. Deadlift's good for you. Let's go for it. You know, we're deadlifting because it's going to build your posterior chain, and it means you're going to be able to produce more force when you sprint, when you run, when you kick, when you do whatever you want to do that's relative to your world. It's also going to build your grip strength. So when you pick up those shopping bags, they're that much lighter, whatever it might be, right? But addressing the purpose of the exercise and what carryover benefits it will have to them personally, not just general. We do deadlifts because it builds your hamstrings and that's good. That's like, why is that person going to want to do it and make it relative to them? We should be able to do that with every single exercise you put in their program. There should be nothing in there that's just because I thought it was a cool exercise. It should be because it will benefit you in this way. And anyone that's worked with me knows that that's really important for me. And I generally, that sounded sus, but I always do that because it just means that you're much more bought into actually doing that exercise. Like, why would I do a face pull? It's a random ass exercise. Looks a bit funny. Why would I do that? Explaining why will overcome that barrier pretty much every time. And then the person will have more intention to get the exercise right and to get better at it. Accountability. At the end of the day, that's what they pay us for. Yeah, you can Google anything these days. You get lost in it, but you can Google anything and find any result or information. So accountability is what we're after. So adherence is the biggest challenge, like I said at the very start of this, for any program, face-to-face or online. So making sure that there's a low barrier to success to start with. And whenever you hit a problem, regress via reducing the criteria. Oh, you got to do 5x5 at 100 kg on your deadlifts today. First set, 4 reps. Second set, 4 reps. Okay, let's take it back to 90 kg for the last 3 sets and see if we can hit the 5 on there so that we can get back on track. Next week, we'll start at 95 and we'll see if that achieves. Reduce the criteria to success and get back to progressing, yeah, rather than just hammering through. So adherence is the same thing for their program. If you write someone a banger program, it's beautiful and it's 5 days a week and it's everything they need and it's going to change their life. They get 2 weeks in and they're only hitting 3 out of the 5 sessions. Address it, bring it back to 3 sessions a week, get them achieving all, get them feeling good, see if you can build it in the 4th, so on and so forth. Yeah, cool. Accountability, obviously checking in on that, but being there to address that. Okay, True Coach. This is how I do True Coach. There's a tab in there called Programs. I just wanted to show that I have many of these built out. I couldn't tell you how many, but lots, because whenever I generally write a program I like, I tend to save it in here. And then I can easily just sub that in for different people. Cool. Valuable way to do it. Just recapping the start there, onboarding, crafting, delivery, rolling through that. Hopefully I covered everything you needed there. And booyah. Look at that, 9:02, maybe a minute over, maybe bang on. Thanks for joining me. As mentioned there, don't hesitate to reach out. I love talking about this stuff. I really hope you picked up something valuable from this, either live or on the recording. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen. But this kind of stuff implemented well can make a real difference to the growth of your business, the results of your clients, the retention of your clients, and even in your own training as well. There's a bunch of places you can catch me and get in contact with me. And if you have the time, throw me a Google review or just reach out and tell me what you thought of this presentation. Thank you for your time. Boom. How was that, Lars?
That's good, mate. Yeah, very Can you see me?
Oh, one sec. Let me just kill the recording so we can chat. Where are we? And